Alright, in this video what we're going to do is we're going to use sub these to create a smooth vase object. We're going to create 3 different variations. So I've gone ahead and I've found some images on the internet of some vases here, usually used for decoration and interiors and things like that, and we're going to go ahead and create these 3 right here. Of course you can create as many as you want, but I'm going to go ahead and stop at 3. Alright, so we'll get started with the one over here on the left. This sort of big one here with the red flower decorations right there. Okay, so the easiest way to do this is if you find a pretty good image of the front view, we can actually load it up into the front view as a background image to help us out. Okay, now even though this isn't a perfect front isometric view of the vase, it has some perspective because of the camera, the photograph. We could still use it. So let's go ahead and let's do that. Let's come over here, hit Alt B on the keyboard, open this up. And I'm going to go ahead and select match bitmap and lock this zoom and pan. And there we go. I'm going to turn the grid off there by hitting G on the keyboard. So there's our vase right there to get started with. So I'm going to come down here to the perspective view. I'm going to make sure in the create tab I select cylinder. We're going to start off with a simple cylinder here. And the size and stuff like that doesn't matter initially. We're going to come in here and edit this. I'm going to make this about 8 sides because this is going to be a sub D object anyway, so it's going to be nice and smooth. I'm going to take the height segments down to 1. Okay, here in the front view we can see the size of this, so I'm going to move it down to about the bottom here. Not all the way to the bottom, but pretty close to it, about right here. Alright, and let me turn off the grid there. Let me increase the radius here so that it kind of matches up with the image there. You can see that the sides right there match up pretty good. Okay, so now I'm going to convert this to an editable poly and get to work. So I'll take the top polygon here and maybe I'll place this about right there. Then I'm going to use the extrude options here and move this up. And something that I can do here is I can actually take this and move it pretty high up. So I can take all these vertices here, I can move them as high as up to here if I wanted to. Then select all those edges and go ahead and use the connect tool, use the options here. And I could connect this a few times, maybe 3 times like that. And then maybe I could take all of these vertices that are right here. I'm just going to come in here in the perspective view, and while I look at this in the front view, I'll just drag that out like that so we have these 2 views over here. I can go ahead and just scale this out. Just keep an eye on the reference image right there. See what's going on. So I'm just basically getting the rough shape here of this. Okay, chances are I'm going to have to edit this. If I go to NURBS toggle to see the smooth version, you can see what I end up with here. It's a little bit smaller than the image, so I'm going to go ahead and adjust that. So I'm going to take these vertices here. Maybe I'll take all of these guys at the same time. And just go ahead and scale those out a bit. Just try to get the rough dimensions there of this thing. I'm going to take the top polygon that's up there. I'm going to extrude that up and move it to about right here. Basically, I'm moving it to the bottom of this lip right here. See that little bulge up there? I'm going to place this at about the bottom of that area right there. I'm also going to go ahead and scale that down so it matches up a little bit better. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to extrude again, and I'm going to move this one to about the top of the lip right there. And again, you don't have to be totally exact, so don't be too picky about it or you'll find yourself wasting too much time working on something that shouldn't take that much time to work on. So I'm going to take, I'll leave this alone for the moment. I'm going to come back down here to the bottom of the vase here and see if I can finish this off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this bottom polygon right here and I'm going to extrude it a little bit. And actually right there looks pretty good. Not going to go too far with it. And I'm going to take, if I take off NURBS toggle, I'm going to take those 2 bottom polygons, go to the graphite modeling tool, select the loop. Then I'm going to go ahead and extrude that by local normal. And I'll extrude it just a little bit. Exactly how much you want to extrude, it's really up to you because it's going to make a little tiny bulge at the bottom there. So I like these default settings. That looks pretty good. Not bad. Okay. Next thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to take that edge right there, select its loop, and as you can remember from previous videos, we'll chamfer this add a segment right there to go ahead and sharpen that up. Okay. I'm also going to come over here, go to my subdivision surface parameters, and give it 2 iterations just so it looks smoother. If I render this out, you can see what I have at the bottom there. I have a little bit of surface detail. Okay, I'm also going to come over here and I'm going to take those 2 polygons right here on the sides, and if I look at the NURBS toggle, if I turn it off, you can see the polygons I have selected. And then with those polygons selected, I'll select their loop. I'm going to go ahead and use the extrude options here. I'm going to turn on the NURBS toggle. Give it a little bit of extrusion up there. Hit OK. Right, you can see here in the front image, it's not matching up exactly how it should be. So I'm going to go ahead and adjust this a little bit. I'm going to go to vertex mode, select those top vertices, scale them out in the perspective view. And I'm going to take the entire object and move it to the right a little bit because the image is not centered properly. But I'm not going to bother editing the image to get that to center properly. It's just going to be a waste of time. So I'll just move the object. It's a lot faster. I'm going to take all of these vertices here. Just scale that out a little bit. Try to get closer to the shape of the vase there. I'm going to select all the edges here that are, if you can see here in the perspective view, these edges right here, that whole ring. I'm going to connect that one time. I'm going to take that connection that I made, that segment, scale that out a little bit, maybe bring it up like so, and just use the front image here as a rough guide. Really helps you out to visualize this better and understand much better what it is that you're doing. I'm going to select the ring of edges that's up here. I'm going to connect that. I'm going to slide the connection a little real close to the top up there. Just going to sharpen that up, not too much and not too little. It's going to give me a pretty good sharp edge right there. Okay, and then up here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this polygon and I'm going to use the Inset Tool to inset this a bit like so. Okay, and then with that polygon selected, I'm just going to go ahead and delete it just to pop a hole open in there. Alright, so we've got the outside of the vase done. Let's go ahead and let's do the inside. So to do the inside, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to select the entire element here of the object. And I'm going to use the scale tool. I'm going to hold down shift and scale this in on itself a little bit. Make it an element. Okay, so you can see we have the inside of the shelf there. And I don't like that bottom part right there. See how I copied over the little lip right there that I have on the bottom, that detail? I don't want it to do that, so I'm going to fix that in a moment. Let me go ahead and flip the normals on this so that they're facing the correct way, which should be to the inside. I'm going to go to polygon mode, select the bottom polygon down there. And I'm going to grow the selection a couple of times. So about right there, so I've got all those bottom polygons selected. I'm going to delete all of those. Then I'm going to go to border edge mode and select the border that's down there and cap it. So I end up with something like this. If I go to NURBS toggle, you can see what I have on the inside. And if I go to see-through mode, you can see what I have. Okay. Now over here we have an open hole. If I go to the object properties and I turn on backface cull, you can see we have a hole right here. That's going to be easy to fix. I'm just going to take the 2 border edges that are right there, go up to my border edges in the graphite modeling tools and bridge that together, and there we go, no more hole. Okay, now let's go ahead and see about finishing this off, see what needs to be finished. I'll go to NURBS toggle, and actually looks pretty good. Let me look at my image. That's not it. There we go. Looks pretty similar to our reference image. Okay, so it doesn't have to be totally exact as long as it's pretty close. Just there's a rough guide. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to the object properties, rename this. I'm going to call this vase type 1. Again, very important to keep things organized. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hide the selection. And we're done with this image, so I'll close that. Let's bring up the next one. Let's model another one. Let's go ahead and do this one here. Now I'm going to go back to my front view, and I'm going to change the image out for the one that I have loaded up here. Once I have that loaded up, I can go ahead and minimize that to get it out of the way. And it's going to be the same process. We'll go back to the Creation tab, create ourselves a cylinder. I'm going to grab it in the front view here and kind of roughly put it in position. Something like that. Let's also reduce the radius there. Move it over a bit. I'm not going to place it at the direct bottom. I'm going to place it about right there. And of course I'm going to reduce its height. So about right there is pretty good. I'm going to convert that to an editable poly. And let's get to work. I'm going to take the top polygon and move it to about here. You can see that the whole object really has to be scaled up a bit. I'm going to turn on my NURBS toggle. Looks like the whole object needs to be moved over. Okay, that looks a little bit better. Let me go ahead and extrude this top part up. And then scale it down. Scale that down. Scale that down. Just keep on getting this thing to kind of match the shape there of your vase or whatever it is that you're modeling. So the same technique can be used to model lots of different things, not just a vase. But this is just the example we're working with here. So I'll take it up to here and do that to it. And on the bottom here, it looks like we need to scale this stuff up a little bit. Now here's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to take the bottom polygon here, and I'm going to grab its edges and chamfer them to make them nice and sharp. Hit OK. I'm also going to go to the subdivision surface here and increase the iterations, just so it's nice and sharp at the bottom. Okay. Now I guess I'm going to just take the entire thing here and just scale it up a bit. I want to take the entire object and scale it up a bit like this. Okay, that's pretty good. It's matching up pretty well with the shape of the object there. So I'm going to take this guy right here, and what I'm going to do with him is I'm going to use the Inset Tool, make a real small inset there. Okay. Edit that video. Let that video starting in 3, 2, 1. Now what we're going to do is we're going to just go ahead and select the top polygon here. Delete it just to get rid of that. What we're going to do is we're going to use the shell modifier to give this thing the inside. So I'm going to go over to my modifier list. I'm going to go down to the shell modifier. Outer amount, I'm going to place it at 0. And for the inner amount, you can see we can give it a small amount of inner right here. I'm going to go with about 1 right there. Value of 1 looks pretty good. And let me see. Alright, looks like it's pretty good. Not bad. Now, I made one mistake. The shell modifier should not have applied while I had this thing in NURBS mode, so I'm going to turn NURBS off. Go back to shell. This is how it should be. The low res object is what you want to apply the shell object to, or the shell modifier. I'm going to convert that back to an editable poly, turn on NURBS, and this is what we have. Now up here we are going to have this problem, but that's okay. That's easy to fix. What I'm going to do is take this edge right there, select its ring, connect that, turn on NURBS toggle, add a couple of segments here. I'm also going to go to the subdivision surface, add another iteration. Basically, just add the amount of geometry you need to get this thing to look pretty good. So even with maybe 3 or 4, maybe 3 connections right there, it seems like it's a little bit overboard, but it does give me a nice shape, so I'm going to say I'm happy with that. Okay, there we go. So I'll hit OK, and I'm going to rename this guy to vase type 2. I'm going to hide the selection. Okay, so we finished with that one. This is the one that we're going to do right now. So let's get the last one done over here. I'm going to load up the reference image from this one over here. Once I got that done, I can go ahead and minimize that image. Don't need it anymore. Now I'm going to go ahead and create another cylinder. In my front view here, I can try to position it right about here. Looks pretty good. Now I'm just being really picky. Okay, the radius looks pretty good. Maybe I'll increase it just a little bit. 8 sides is good. I'm going to convert this thing to an editable poly, and let's start to edit it. Okay, so let's increase the size of that. I'm going to turn on NURBS toggle here. Take that top polygon and extrude it. I'm going to take it to about right here. That's pretty much where this little kind of neck sticks out of the vase up here, the top part. So that's where I'm going to stop that. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the edges here, connect that ring of edges, hit OK. Kind of pull that out a bit like that. And then down here, I'm going to take this bottom polygon. It looks like we have to do another piece here that looks like it's separate. It's kind of like a stand or something like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to extrude that out. I'm going to pull it down to about right here. Then what I need to do is I need to scale it up. And I'm going to select the edges for that polygon, and I'm going to chamfer that. Make it look nice and sharp. I'm going to go to my sub D options over here and give it 2 iterations just so it's nice and sharp at the bottom. There we go. I'm going to hit OK on that. And you can see here that the bottom has to be scaled up a little bit, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to scale it up a bit like that. Okay. Now, if I go over here, this edge right here, that's where we have to create this piece, or kind of this section that makes it look like it's 2 separate pieces hooked up together. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to select that entire loop of edges right there. I'm going to go ahead and chamfer it out one time with just one segment. And in terms of thickness, just make it pretty thin. Something like that looks pretty good. Then I'm going to select the polygons that are right there. Okay. I'm going to grab that entire loop of polygons all the way around. Then I'm going to extrude this by local normal. But I'm going to extrude it into the object, like this. And then hit OK. If I go to NURBS toggle, it's going to look kind of funny. So the way to fix that is we need to sharpen some edges. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to select the top edge and the bottom one down there. I'm going to select the loop. Then I'm going to chamfer that. 2 segments, make it pretty thin so that it's nice and sharp. And now we have our sharp sort of geometry right there. If we render that out, you can see how it looks like it's 2 separate pieces there. Okay. Now I can see it right here. I need to make some adjustments, so I'll go ahead and I'll do that. Just scale that out so it matches with the profile of the image there a little bit better. Okay. Now up here, I have to take the top polygon, and what I have to do is I have to inset this. So I'm going to use the Inset Tool. I'm going to inset that by quite a bit. I'm going to extrude this up. Now I want to get that shape a little bit better, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to select those two polygons, select their loop. I'm going to take the entire loop and I'm going to scale it down like so, kind of to match up with the throat of the vase right there a little bit better. I call it a throat. I really don't know what you call that, but I'm going to go ahead and name that as a throat. Okay, so I'll bring this up to about right here where the lip of the top of the vase is. And what I need to do is I need to scale this up. Because you can see in the image this thing kind of flares out like this. Okay, and now I'm going to delete the top polygon up there. And there we go, we should end up with something like this. Now I need to make this part right here sharp. So I'm going to go ahead and select the loop of edges down there. And I'm going to use the chamfer tool as usual. Same deal as always. And there we go, now it's nice and sharp up there. And just to make this look a little bit better, I'm going to select the ring of edges that's up here in the throat. I'm going to connect that maybe one time. I'm going to take that loop right there we just created and kind of scale that down a bit. I'm going to take the border of edges on the top here. I'm going to scale that down a little bit too because it's a little bit flared out too much. Something like that. And actually I think it is supposed to be flared out a lot. Let me go ahead and put that back to how it was before. It's got to be flared out quite a bit. Okay, so the rest of it looks pretty decent. This loop right here needs to be increased in size. So I'm going to increase its size like that. And I know that it's not matching the image perfectly, but that's because the image has perspective distortion. So we have to be aware of that. So you can see because of that I'm ending up with a strange sort of flat shape on the top up there. If I render this out, you see how it's looking kind of weird up there. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to move this down a bit. Kind of end up with like something like that. Maybe I'll take this entire edge loop right here and move it down a bit like that. Okay. So now with that done, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and select all the top polygons up here. And now I'm going to grow the selection a couple of times. I'm going to grow the selection one more time to get that bottom right there. And that's it. I don't want to go past that. I'm going to hold down Shift and scale this in a little bit and make it an element. Then I'm going to flip the normals to that new geometry. And I know I have to seal the bottom there. So I'm going to take the bottom border, cap it, end up with something like this. And now on the top, I'm just going to grab the two borders right there, go to border edges, bridge that together. Then I'm going to take the edge that's right there, grab the ring. I'm going to connect this a couple of times. Yeah, I think a couple of times looks good. Now I'm going to hit OK. So I end up with something like this. Okay, so I'm going to rename this. I'm going to call this vase type 3. Alright, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to unhide all. Here's all my different vases. Move that over a bit. Okay, I want to export this stuff as OBJ format. We've done that before in previous volumes of this tutorial series. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to export this stuff. One important thing here is, if this thing is in NURMS mode, what's going to happen if we export it like this, it's going to export the high-res version. You may or may not want that. So just to keep things original and not make major edits like that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take NURMS toggle off for all of these guys. Okay? So that the low-res original object gets exported, not the high-res. Okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this guy, or I'll take all of these guys here. And I'm going to go to export. Make sure you go to export selected, and it's just going to go straight to the export folder. So I'm going to export this out as an OBJ. Go ahead and select OBJ from the drop-down list. I'm going to call this vases. I'm going to go ahead and leave it on polygons here for the faces. I don't want to triangulate or make any changes to that. Just want to keep it as polygons. And that's it. I'm just going to use these settings here. Hit export. and done. Okay, so we're done with this one. Alright, so now that we've exported it out, it's ready to go, and we're done here with these vases that we created for our scene. So I'm going to end this here. Then the next one, we're going to work on some more lighting fixtures using more organic shapes and high-res details.